Good morning. I am Yancy and welcome to my kitchen and welcome to a kind of dreary, rainy day here in Virginia. But that means it's a good day for baking, right? Right. Okay, I've gotten this started. Today we're going to make herb biscuits, by the way, and I've already gotten started. If you would like a detailed video on how to make my standard buttermilk biscuits, there is a video on my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I only have 8, maybe 9 videos on there, so it's not hard to find the biscuit one. There's a link in my bio. And so anyway, so I figured you didn't have time for that today, so I'm starting sort of in the middle. This is a recipe that was big in the 70s and 80s. If you ever went to a dinner party in that era, you may have had this. I got it from my mother-in-law. I believe it was in the 80s, had to have been the 80s. But I believe it was probably originally from the 70s. I think it would probably circulated in a lot of the women's magazines. Remember those? And so anyway, but like a lot of things in the 70s, it was originally made with a processed food. Yes, I'm talking about canned biscuits or refrigerated biscuits. You remember those? You had to take the peeling off and then bang it on the side of the counter, and then it would pop open, and you'd all, and for me anyway, every time you'd go, and then you've got this kind of really, I had flour all over me. You've got these chemically biscuits. So I decided I wanted to make them from scratch with real biscuits. So also the original recipe called, I don't know if you remember that those biscuits were always fairly big. And so you were to cut them into quarters to make this recipe. So what I did was I just used my tiniest biscuit cutter for these. This is maybe inch and a half. They're small. Okay, so this is my standard buttermilk biscuit recipe. Just really quickly, it's 2 cups self-raising flour, 1 stick of butter, and depending upon the kind of flour you use and the humidity in the day, and I mean that seriously, it can take from 3/4 to 1 cup of buttermilk. You're just gonna have to work it until it's the right consistency, until it feels like biscuit dough. I trust you on that one. Okay, now here's where it gets interesting. You melt butter. And I have done this, as you can see, in an 8-inch iron skillet. The original recipe called for 1 entire stick of butter. Now, as you know, I have 1 entire stick of butter in my biscuits already. And I don't have a cardiologist on speed dial, so I dialed it back. This is simple. This is just a 1/2 stick of butter and then a whole lot of herbs. This is a 1/2 teaspoon each of the following, all dried, by the way. Dried basil, dried minced garlic, dried oregano, onion powder, and ground dried thyme. You detecting an Italian kind of feel? That's right. Just use whatever Italian-esque herbs you have. You can also buy a mix of Italian seasoning at the grocery store. I've never used it, but there you go. Okay, so here's where it gets weird. So you've got your melted 1/2 cup of butter and all these herbs in here. Gosh, it smells really good. Now you take your biscuits and you just dump them in here. And you want to kind of let them swim all around in this butter mixture and get coated on all sides. And here's where I understand why when this recipe first came out in the 70s, they used those refrigerator biscuits, because I think they probably had a lot more density to them than these. And so as you work this, your biscuits are going to start to get a little gooey. And you may be thinking, this isn't going to work. But I promise you it is. So anyway, go through this, get them all done. I won't waste your time here, but get them all in there. And if you have to really smush them up together, go ahead and do that, because trust me, it works. Okay, so get them all in there. So I'm going to put this to the side now. Because I know you don't have time to hang around while I bake biscuits. By the way, I baked these at 400 degrees for 20 minutes. and I baked a whole batch before you got here. So this is the end result. When you first take them out of the oven, by the way, they're still going to be sizzling and you're still going to see a lot of butter in there. And that's another point where you're going to think, this is not going to work. But trust me, as they cool down, they reabsorb that butter. And this is what you get. These are crunchy on all sides. They're loaded with herbs, therefore loaded with taste, and loaded with butter, so this is not something you're going to do every day, but they are absolutely divine. And they're kind of, when they come out, they're almost a little like monkey bread or pull-apart bread, because they're all stuck together. But the thing that surprised me the most is that they're actually crunchy on all sides, and that's because of that butter. And now I'm thinking, because they're such an interesting size and a little misshapen, I'm thinking you could cut these in quarters at this point and use them as croutons. You could float them in a soup. You could put them in a salad. Wouldn't that be wonderful in the bottom of a bowl of French onion soup? Or you can just eat them like this. But they're better than that 70s version because they're real. So thank you, Mother-in-law Sue, for turning me on to these wonderful biscuits, and thank you, Braxton, for reminding me of how wonderful they were, because really it was the other day he said, hey, what happened to those herb biscuits you used to make? And I had completely forgotten about them. So go make yourself some herb biscuits, and my fellow Virginians, I hope this day gets less gloomy, but enjoy a baking day. And we'll see you next time. Bye.